Welcome back to my world now here, YouTube again. I promised a couple of videos about my vehicles and my family here that I have here. I didn't show you one of them. The Buick Sentry's gone. It's at work with my mom. I just got back in that, the 2001 Ford F-150 6-cylinder. That's not going to be the star of the show today, though. I figure I first do a show to my old Ford F-100 instead today. So we're going to go do a startup and explain a little bit, because I know Dave's Farm, he explained how the fuel injection worked. But carburetors are actually, now they're becoming lost art. Not very many people deal with them anymore around here, especially if you get into bigger cities. So here is my old 72 Ford F-100 here. Carbureted 360 cubic inch V8 system in it. It's a really old work truck, I would say. It's got some rust in the little pocket where the bottom end of the bed meets the top half on the rail, the bed rail there. Chrome's so-so. That wasn't an accident. They did their homemade primer there, so that was alright. I got my God Bless America stickers, I think. That's what I want to do. God bless my America. Ford F-100 badges. Sticker. Now, I'll show you how that carburetor works. Have to take off the air cleaner nut first. Almost lost. And then you got the engine compartment. So let's try and get the hood up here one-handed. And there you go. There's a 360 cubic inch Ford motor. I just got the head work done on it. Had a valve job done to it because it was missing on a cylinder, on the 8th cylinder. And so far it's running alright now, I would say. Not as good as when it was brand new, of course, but it's still good enough for me. A 360 cubic inch. That. Okay. There's a carburetor. I also rebuilt the carburetor when I did the headwork myself on it. That's the Ford Motorcraft 2-barrel carburetor. They're not hard to rebuild. I've rebuilt them before. Now, I'm not going to try and climb up here because the hood doesn't open that well, but there's your butterfly assembly, and if there was more light you can actually see the venturis right there, and those actually atomize the fuel mixture with air and squirt them out 2 little jets on this 2-barrel down into the intake manifold through this cast iron, from what I've heard is boat anchor, and I know for a fact because it weighs 80 pounds of cast iron into your cylinders. Now there's differences in carburetors though, how Ford used theirs. They were kind of having a little bit of trouble, I would say. They were trying to keep their carburetors warm, and that might be for all companies, but I know Ford and Dodge always had a cold motor. So take a look at that's my heater core right there, but right to there's that T branch, and that goes underneath the carburetor, goes right directly into the carburetor off to this bypass right here. This bypass, this blue little bypass. Now it comes from the heater core, sends hot coolant underneath the carburetor to keep the bottom warm, and then the top is kept warm by exhaust gases, trying to keep that open. And since this is manifold heated, it is very important to keep it warm all the time so the engine runs more efficiently. What's nice about Fords also is they have their distributor up front as opposed to the back, so they're much easier to work on than, say, a Delco Remy distributor, or for that matter a Dodge distributor, because you don't need a special wrench to get to it. So that's a 360. On this carb anyway, like I was telling you, it's manifold heated. So in the mornings when it's cold, there's some copper tubing right there wrapped around the exhaust pipe This is my own custom job, but at the time, when it was brand new, Ford had on their exhaust manifold a special spot to heat it, and they had a special tube that ran to the carburetor and heated it. That's basically what this is doing now with that copper tubing. It's just making a special heater for it, and that heats it up, and that slowly opens this little butterfly choke right here. So when you start it, when you get ready to start it, you'll prime the accelerator pump linkage right here underneath the carburetor, that little thing with 2 volts from what you can see here. You'll prime that back and forth, and that squirts fresh fuel into the carburetor, priming the system. What it also does is it kicks the choke in, so that way it kills the basically rich. It makes the run, I guess you could say it lean or rich. I'm kind of confused on those lingo, but then when you hit warm, your choke stays open. Now, and the true to this too is when it's cold in the mornings, there's this little bobber right here. This is to actually uses engine vacuum to kick the choke off. So when you start it, you'll see a little kick, and that choke will open a little bit to let air into the engine, so it's not totally starving it. Other forms of this, they've used electricity to do that instead of vacuum, engine vacuum. But this is an older carburetor where they didn't use a lot. But see, that's that 360. So I got a key for it. We will start it. We'll put the air cleaner assembly on, because carburetors are known to backfire quite a bit when you don't have the air cleaner assembly on. So that'll do it for that Motorcraft 2 barrel, and they're easy to rebuild. One of the easier ones. I've done a Holly 2 barrel, and they're not nearly as easy as what I've done with the Ford. So let me put the air cleaner back on, and then we'll get a starting video of this pickup truck. So. First threads are always fun to get them started when doing it one-handed. Also, with the carburetors, everything is manual, so there's no computer to control anything with it. So like your idle speed and your idle quality is all done by hand first before the vehicle is even, when the vehicle's warm, it's done. You adjust all that stuff when the vehicle's warm. For the Motorcraft, the idle screw, fast idle, is back there right next to the accelerator cable. And there's 2 idle quality screws underneath the carburetor to make sure it idles correctly. Biggest problem with Motorcraft carburetors that you have is your power valve assembly is pretty known to leak. Little stuff in the back, but they do leak, and sometimes you'll be pissed off at yourself because you'll put it on and it'll start leaking on you, and then your truck will run like crap, like this one has when I've not sealed it properly. So here's the interior of the pickup truck, an old 1970s green color with the new favorite Ford emblem seat covers. Little pits in the windshield, nothing bad though for a 72. Glass is much better back in 72 than I say nowadays.